Hey, what's up everybody? Icy Soul for Icy Duelist here, bringing you another episode of my beginner's guide to Yu-Gi-Oh! Today we're going to be looking at the actual field. Now I know that the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's tutorial on actually how to play the game, it does talk about a little bit about the different types of cards and stuff, but it doesn't really show you exactly what the field looks like, and plus their field is kind of outdated anyway. So I figured I'd give you guys a little bit of a super basic, like, just crash course on, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Field. So before you even get started, this is why I'm putting this video before the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's tutorial on my playlist. Before you even get into that, you're going to kind of want to know what the Yu-Gi-Oh! Field looks like. So this is what your Yu-Gi-Oh! Field will look like. Your opponent's field will be just this, but pretty much flipped upside down because you'll be looking at it in reverse. But this is what your field looks like on the field now as of the 2014 game mechanics. And I'll go over each of these things, show you what they are, what they mean, and what their purpose is. So starting out right here, we have the deck zone. This is where you put your deck, which is a minimum of 40 cards. And I believe it's a maximum of 60, I believe. And you put your deck face down when it's shuffled and everything right there in the deck zone. And we'll be talking about decks in another video, talking about, proper ways to build decks and everything, and, stuff like that. So don't worry if you don't know how to build your deck. We'll get to that eventually. Next up here, we have this gray thing here. This is the graveyard. This is where all your used spell cards, all your used trap cards, all your destroyed monsters go. This is where everything's kind of discarded to after it's been used or destroyed. Now, getting into this, I think this is a really good, important tip to know, and it's something that I didn't know for a long time. Being in G1 Yu-Gi-Oh!, the graveyard was kind of like the final resting place of everything, as far as I knew. But that's not so much the game anymore. Think of the graveyard as kind of like a deck you can't play from. Your monsters are usually still accessible to you from your graveyard, with special card effects and whatnot. But don't think that putting monsters or spells or traps in the grave is always a bad thing, because sometimes it's not. You have certain decks like for example, Light Sworns that just thrive off of cards in the graveyard. So just keep that in mind when you're like building a deck. We'll talk about, like I said, we'll talk about building a deck later, but don't think of the graveyard as the final resting place of your cards, because there really is no final resting place for your cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! With the mechanics that have been implemented. So up here is the graveyard, basically. Moving over here, this green area is the field spell zone. Now, the field spell zone is where you place the special types of spell cards. We'll get into special types of spell and trap cards in a later video. But this is where you will put your field spell cards. It's a special type of spell card, and you can put it either face down or face up in this zone. By the way, your monsters in your graveyard, unless the card says otherwise, go face up. Just thought I'd point that out. All the cards in the graveyard that go to the graveyard, once they go to the graveyard, unless the card says to do otherwise, they go face up. So, like, back to the field spell zone over here. Like I said, you can set a field spell or play a field spell face up. If you set it, it goes face down, obviously. And this is a very specific zone for field spells, and we'll get into the new field spell mechanics. There was old field spell mechanics, but since they have changed with the new Arc V mechanics that have come out just this past year, we're gonna wait to talk about field spells and how they're actually used in the new Arc V mechanics video that I'm going to be doing later on. So just know that your field spell cards go here, face down or face up. That's basically all you need to know. Down here, we have the extra deck. Now, this is where your fusion monsters, your synchro monsters, and your Xyz monsters go. You can have a maximum of, I believe, 15 cards in your extra deck. And should note that field spell, of course, you can only have one card in the field spell zone at a time. So the extra deck, you know, like I said, just where you put your Xyz and synchros and fusions, and they all go face down. You can have a total of up to 15 cards in your extra deck, I believe. So if I'm wrong, I'll put an annotation up somewhere if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 15. And moving on to the main centerpiece of the board, you have these 5 zones right here and these 5 zones right here. These are your monster zones. This is where you will place your monsters to do battle and defend your life points. This is pretty much where all the action. These two zones are these two like sections right here are pretty much where all the action is going to be happening in the game. You'll notice how these zones, these monster zones up here, have these like straight cards, you know, looking face down and whatnot. But they also have these white borders outside, like going sideways. That's to indicate that you can put monsters in defense position, which, don't worry about what that is. They will cover that in the 5Ds tutorial you'll see coming up next, so don't even worry about it. But yeah, these are where your monster cards go. You can have 5 monster cards in play at a time. And the 5Ds tutorial will cover more of, you know, what monsters are, how they work, and all that when that gets there. Down here is your spell and trap card zone. You can have 5 spells or traps down at a time. That doesn't mean 5 spells and 5 traps. That means they're all kind of occupying the same area here. So you can have a combination of up to 5 spells and or traps, you know, on your field. And you can, as the 5Ds tutorial will cover, you can either activate them, activate spells face up or set spells, or you can set trap cards, which, don't worry if you don't understand any of that, the 5Ds tutorial will cover it. Moving on to probably the newest addition to the game board are these 2 areas over here on either side. These are your pendulum zones. This is something brand new to the game in 2014, and this is where you play your pendulum monsters. They're a special type of monster that we'll talk about in the new Arc V mechanics in a later video. But yeah, this is where you'll play your pendulum monsters, and that's basically all I can say without delving too much into the Arc V mechanics. But just know that pendulum monsters are a special type of monster that you will play here to get certain effects. So I think that's basically it for the field. Make sure you watch all. If you're a beginner to Yu-Gi-Oh, watch all the videos in this playlist, and hopefully by the end of this playlist you will be a true champion duelist. So as always, this is all for Icy Duelist, signing out.